Tim Gillingham is passionate. If there's one thing you need to know about Tim, is his passion for archery cannot be understated.
There's just not two people like Tim. He analyzes everything. He's got to know why it works, why it doesn't work.
He wants to teach you how to do it so you can pass that on, you know, and kind of just branch that out to others as well.
He micro-tunes every tiny part of archery, which nobody ever did before, really.
You know, so growing up, I grew up pretty poor, you know, and it always was a hit on my self-esteem as a child, you know. And my dad was, you know, a preacher, really had aspirations of becoming a preacher, you know, and not the most lucrative profession in a small town of Farson, Wyoming, of a couple hundred people. But I always kind of gravitated to my own thing. I never really clicked with team sports because it was real political. And as a kid growing up in high school, growing up pretty poor, I just had a real big hit to my self-esteem, I think, you know, and kids picking on you, it just didn't really, you know, everybody took it different. My brother, in one hand, started fighting, and I, on the other hand, pretty much kept to myself and really delved into archery. And I really loved it because I got out of it what I put into it. I bought my first bow from, you know, one of our preachers. It was an old beat up, you know, everybody's had a bear whitetail, right? I had 3 of them. So I worked with my dad a lot. I really credit my father for instilling a work ethic in me. I mean, and it was kind of ironic. My mother always jokes that my dad was lazy till he, you know, was in his 40s, but I never saw my father that way. I always saw my father as just, you know, a hard-working guy. He had 6 kids to take care of, you know, so he, you know, after he started preaching, he was a carpenter. So, you know, we worked with him all the time. I worked with him all summer. I worked with him after school, and so he imparted a lot of those skills, but it really was the work ethic. And I think that competitive nature that I had always kind of, the competitive nature just, it transpires into everything. You know, if I had a job in high school cleaning, you know, cooking sheets at the baking, you know, the bakery. I mean, it was a horrible job. But I also did it to the best of my ability because I just think that's an innate personality that I have, that perseverance. I mean, some people are talented, and I don't know that I necessarily fit into that category, but I do think I work harder than everybody else. So I love it, and I have to work harder than everybody else. If I have an innate ability, it's probably problem solving. I'm really good at looking at something and understanding how to make it better, you know, or fix it. So.
Tim Gillingham, I mean, he's so important to this industry, and to me, he's been invaluable, like just knowledge, you know, and really, I think taking people and how they treat the sport and how they look at the sport differently.
I'm getting a left tear out of a stiff arrow. He spent hundreds of hours trying to figure out, you know, why this was it and why that, you know, why that was happening. And finally one day he figured out it was the load on the cable guard at full draw. And that's what led to him, you know, taking his aluminum cable rods and bending them all sorts of ways, and just learning that, and just from him spending the time tinkering around, finding it, that I think that's been a huge step in the industry standpoint, because, you know, you look at a lot of bows now, a lot of them have adjustable cable guards for, you know, tuning capabilities and that, and a lot of that, I think, started with Tim.
But if you know Tim and you are receptive to constructive criticism, he is the best person you want to work with, because if you scrape off the delivery of the message and you get to the content, there is something there for you to benefit from. And I don't care if you're an archer, if you're a designer, you're owner of a company, or you're his friend, there is something that he's always trying to help you. It's that passion.
The industry respects Tim so much. I mean, people ask him constantly, or in his ear, how you do this, how you build arrows, how you tune bows. And
he's not an engineer, but he thinks like an engineer, and he's the guy that will test and test and test. but he knows this isn't working and I got to figure out why.
He looks at it from an organizational standpoint, from a design standpoint, from a product standpoint, from a technical standpoint. That's his passion. And he cannot wait to share all his knowledge with people, and it doesn't matter who you are, and that's what makes him special.
So through Tim's influence in the archery industry, through just the design of bows, technology, accessories he designs, all the way to the shooting organizations, influential in adding additional classes and things of that nature, he's a wealth of knowledge, and he brings that to the R&D department, helps us design better bows, better products, greater technology, and through that, we're going to really revolutionize the archery industry as we move forward.
I learned through the School of Hard Knocks. Nobody taught me. I really never got taught archery. I grew up doing it myself. My mind works like there's always a better way. You know, I had to learn sight leveling the right way. The only information that was available to me in sight leveling was some videos that were on the market. Well, I did it the way this guy was telling me, but then when I get to a tournament, it was obvious real quick that it wasn't working for me. So I had to figure out what's broken in that scenario. But it took me, I'm not kidding you, it took me probably 10 years of shooting competitive archery before I really figured it out. I really knew exactly what I was doing. So when I teach people, I'm trying to teach people what they're doing rather than how to do it. Because when you teach people what they're doing, then they can apply that to every scenario. And I think I really have the ability to teach somebody in layman's terms so they actually understand it.
Tim has had some of the craziest looking contraptions, you know, and been the laughing stock of the whole tournament world at times because of it, but he'll show up. I mean, I've literally seen him show up with stabilizers sticking off every side of his bow. You know, he's got like magnifying glasses that look like go-go gadget and stuff like dangling in front. I mean, it's like, what are you doing, man? And he's like, it's awesome, you know, and then the next day he's breaking it and throwing it in the woods, you know.
His favorite thing is with arrow setups, people try to, you know, tell him one way, and then he will just sit there and argue and, you know, tooth and nail until he can prove that he's right. And someone will go out and, you know, they'll do it their way and they won't cut their arrows down like he told them to, and then they'll go out and shoot for 3 months. And they'll, you know, not shooting great scores, and they come back and finally listen to Tim, and he just, you know, laughs, and you'll never hear the end of it.
So I've literally seen so many like inventions, but what it is him just trying to be better. It's like, that's what Tim's thing is. It's like always trying to find that thing is gonna push him over, you know. So yeah, he's had some pretty epic failures at inventions, and some of them has stuck, you know, but he's always trying.
One of the first guys that'll talk to the, you know, the up-and-comers and the newbies and all that, and it doesn't matter who you are, he talks to you.
You know, he's really done so much for this sport. Like, I'm a prime example. He's helped me so much throughout my archery career, and I don't think I'd be shooting at the level I was today without Tim.
Just not two people like Tim. He analyzes everything. He's got to know why it works, why it doesn't work, the reasons for it. And I think if there were more manufacturers out there that listened to Tim, he could tell them how to build a better bow.
He's had a huge impact just with his perfectionist attitude and his relentless, like, strive to be perfect, you know, knowing he could never obtain that. Nobody could, but I mean, his impact on archery has been huge.
Overall, the sport of archery is better from Tim, just from the people he's taught, the people he's mentored and coached. And I just see that going forward as Tim's niche. He's an educator. He's not afraid to share his information. And the same thing goes in products. I just see the sport overall getting bigger and bigger, and Tim's going to be the guy. They're going to say, you know, what got archery here, and they're going to say Tim Gillingham.
Well, I think what I've given to archery really is myself. You know, I get a comment from a lot of shooters that I'm one of the only pros that will actually talk to them, and they really appreciate that. And I guess I don't take myself too seriously. I don't take archery too seriously. I think in my mind, it could be so much bigger. You know, I mean, I just really believe that the sport of archery could be gigantic.